I know it's been a long wait, but I finally have the version 4 done, and through testing, this video is going to go over all the little details, the changes that I made to it, and what makes this overall one of the best units that you can buy for your VSR-10. So if you did not see last, this was the version 3, did quite a bit of testing with it, worked great. A couple of small little issues I wanted to fix before actually selling it to you guys. And that's why I came up with this version 4. You can see it looks quite a bit different than previous version, but it honestly does the same exact thing, just fixing the small little issues that I had with version 3. I want to address the small little issues from version 3 before I move on to the little details. The first minor issue is the profile where the outer barrel rests on. Before, it was a smaller radius than what I made now. And to kind of explain that a little bit better, I made this diagram. So this is your outer barrel. I measured the factory VSR-10 and I made the profile match perfectly. Well, if you get a slightly bigger outer barrel, your top adjustment piece will not sit flat, and that'll actually cause your dial to have a tiny bit of play, which could cause shot inconsistency. Previously, you can see it was the red line, and now I made it so it's the black line, where no matter how big your barrel is, it'll bottom out on the center, which is where this unit relies on its consistency, because the very bottom of this radius sits flush with the bottom of the dial. So that's how you get your consistency. Now, that might not have been an issue where I thought it would be, but I wanted to fix that just in case it was. And the next issue that I saw is the bucking tightness inside. And I don't mean like right now, because inserting that's about as tight as I can get. It's got to take a little bit of force, but it fits in. The issue I can see is I didn't have anything between the bucking and the clamping piece. So the clamping piece stopped probably about 3/4 of an inch away. And the issue I can see with that is no matter if you have your barrel clamped inside your unit or not, that bucking can still move around, because let's face it, you have to have a little bit of play to get it in. So that little bit of play, it can move around when you're cycling or whatever, adjusting. So I have fixed that in the new version. Before we jump into the middle of this chamber, I want to go over the external adjustment. Here's the new version 4. You can see 2 pieces, and it does the same thing as before. Got your nice positive clicks. I added little notches up here with a single line on your dial. So when you adjust it, you can see that line moves. I don't know if you guys are going to use this or not. I thought it'd be a cool touch. Maybe you're going to use different weight ammo and you can figure out, okay, the big lines for 4 8s and then a couple of downs for 4 0s. I don't know. It's a cool little touch that I added for you guys. Still got the 2 screws with springs in the balls that actually put pressure on the ribs. I did decrease the number of ribs and I made them deeper than what it was before, you can see. Now, the deeper ribs are good for better engagement for the balls, but they don't give you as much adjustment. So my way around that is, you can see there's 2 balls obviously. Now, when the balls are putting pressure on this, they don't sit both in the low spot. One actually sits in and the other one sits on the very outside of the dial. Then when you adjust it, the one drops in and then the other one goes up to the top. And it's kind of like a seesaw. So only one ball is in at a time. And the amount of ribs you see here, it's actually double the adjustment that you get. So that was my way around that. I also cut down the size of the dial base. Before, it spanned both sides of the dial equally. So what you see over here was on the other side. It's quite long. You had to drill 3 holes in your outer barrel to bolt down, and then the 1 through hole. Now you only need to drill 2 holes, and this 1 bolt holds it fine in your outer barrel and it's not going to go anywhere. The last change on the dial is now you can see I have a plus with some arrows to show you which way to adjust. So obviously plus for more hop, and then the other way for less. Okay, let's talk about the chamber itself. I'm gonna get this out of the way. This is just the chamber without the external adjustment, and quite a bit of difference from version 3. The ends are pretty much the same. This is how I clamped the inner barrel before. It was a little piece, snap that in, and then these screws put pressure on the inner barrel and clamp it. Now that's done internally. I will go over that. But as far as the externals, the window, pretty much the same. Looks a little different. It's easier to machine on the new version. Smaller tools I'd be used on the version 3. Now it's easier. These were how you use the template to drill in your outer barrel. That's also done differently on this. I'll go over that. The nub window, pretty much the same. These little screws, I will go over what they do. This was the centering device before, and that's changed. And then you can see that the mounting hole for the external adjustment is the same, but it uses one less than what the version 3 did. This is where your slot for your bucking went. That's changed. So externally, it's just the mag activation piece, how you clamp it to your barrel, and then your nub window. That's all the externals do on this one. Version 3 had a built-in drill template for your outer barrel. So you'll bolt that into your outer barrel and then you drill through these 3 holes, and that would line up your external adjustment with your hop-up unit. That way you can bolt it down. Version 4 still has it built into the chamber, so it's a little different. Now you bolt it in exactly how you bolt in your hop-up unit. You line this up with the edge of your outer barrel, you bolt this in, and you drill through that hole, and then you drill through the one that's not threaded. It's a little bit smaller, so you can see it goes through the threads of this one, and then there's the hole. So you drill it out smaller, and then you chase it with a bigger drill bit to fit the 440 screws, and all that's going to be included in the kit. Here we have the inside of the unit. I went ahead and removed the top cover for it, and this is where all the magic happens, the important parts. So inner barrel and bucking assembled. These 4 screws are what hold the inner barrel aligned with the top now. The head of the screw puts pressure on the inner barrel, nice and solid. I have now included 2 tiny little screws. There they are without the barrel, and you insert them from the other side. And what they do is when you insert your bucking and barrel, keeps everything aligned because of the grooves on the VSR barrel. So it just drops right in there and it's nice and snug. Now, if those don't work for you, if you don't have cuts or it just isn't working, you can always remove those and just do it the old-fashioned way, just spin until you think it's centered. But every barrel I've tested so far, the barrel drops in right in between these screws with no issue at all, keeps it aligned. So that should help with assembly. Now the bucking, which is arguably the most important part, I now have a bucking groove cut on both sides of the unit, and that bucking can no longer move forward and back like I stated before. You can see the screws stop it on the back side, and on the front, that groove is cut so that bucking cannot move at all. And this is a much better system than just sliding the bucking in and hopefully it stays. I've also cut the bucking groove on both sides slightly smaller in diameter than what the bucking is itself. The reason for that is when you assemble it, you can see there's a slight gap. That's on purpose. What happens is when you actually tighten these 2 units down, you can see there's no longer a gap, and that puts pressure all the way around the bucking and gives you a better air seal on your nozzle. It's a tighter fit, which means better air seal. So to summarize what version 4 does, locks the bucking in place, does not rotate anymore, does not shift, and it gives a better air seal on the nozzle. And those are the important things for accuracy in a sniper rifle. The nub I'm not going to really talk about. It's the same as before. You still got your screw, which the dial pulls up and down for adjustment, your 2 little holes for your spring, and then the concave patch, kind of like a R-hop style pressure applied to the nub. And the nub works great, so I'm not going to change it. It's still a very nice tight fit inside of the groove. Actually takes a little bit of pressure, which isn't much for the dial to pull it up and down, but you want a nice tight fit. You don't want the thing rocking around and giving you mispressure on the top of the bucking. So nub works great. The last thing I want to talk about is the major flaw from version 3, and that's the BB centering device. I call it centering device because the bore where your nozzle goes in is a lot bigger than the diameter of the BB. So when your mag's activated and loads rounds in, it's like dropping a ball inside of a pipe. It's either going to go forward or back. It's not going to stay directly in place. If you have a centering device or a BB stopper, it stops it in the center and it physically cannot load multiple rounds in the chamber. So previously I had this metal one and it had its issues. I'm not going to go over all the little things, but it was not the best method. Now I have fixed that for version 4. You can see the O-ring in there now, and I will explain how that works. Here's the unit split back apart again. You can see the O-ring is fixed in the top part of the unit, held in by these 2 screws, and you can see the O-ring slightly protrudes in. It's lined up with the entrance hole of your mag, so when the BB drops through, the BB is cradled by each side of the O-ring and prevents it from going forward and back. Quickly show you how it works. So we have the chamber and the nozzle, and then you load your mag in, activates, you hit the click, pull the nozzle back, it loads 1 round in the chamber. You can see it's centered enough that's only gonna load 1, and then when you insert the nozzle, pushes the BB through. Obviously there's no bucking and barrel, so the rounds are just gonna fall through, but then pull the nozzle back, loads another one, loads it. So I actually like this method. It works out great. Loads another one. O-rings are really cheap and easy to replace. I did quite a bit of testing so far with multiple O-rings, and I'm including these so-called high wear resistant O-rings. They're a little bit more expensive, but even these are like cents compared to what other methods are, and they're soft, so when you load rounds into the chamber against the bucking, the softness of the rubber is not gonna like micro scratch the BB like you would possibly get with these metal ones, and there's almost no force to load the round in the chamber, as you saw. So the O-ring is my solution to what the issue with version 3 is. Real quick before I talk about how you can get one of these, I didn't mention these little flats. You may be looking at them like, wouldn't it be not stable inside of the outer barrel? But no, the actual contour where it fits in the outer barrel goes far enough around that it doesn't move sideways, because on the edges it's supported. So the flats are mainly for when I machine these, it holds onto it, lets me clamp onto it, compared to like trying to hold onto a circle for me, which is tough. But that goes over everything. The bottom cutouts here don't really matter, because when you have your barrel block inserted, it hugs this contour up here, and then obviously this bottom sits on your outer barrel. So all of this is free space anyway. I just milled it out, helped me put some reliefs for the screws. These screws actually will hold it down, and then your screws that hold your inner barrel in fit inside of the little slots on the adjacent piece. So that's what those slots are for. But the main question you guys probably have is, how can I get one of these? And the answer is August 22nd. I will have these on my Etsy store, and this is in beta right now. So I will release them at reduced cost for testing, and a certain limited quantity is available. So if you want one of these, check out my Etsy shop. I will have it on my Instagram bio, and hopefully you guys can get some positive results out of this. I'm not saying that this would give you night and day difference from other VSR units. It's just the ease of access for everything is just going to make this unit that much more better, I believe, than what's out on the market with the included TDCs, just all in one package. So August 22nd for you guys. Keep an eye out. I'm going to make a post as well if you forget, and hopefully you pick one up, and I'd like to hear you guys' feedback. So as always, thanks for watching, and follow for more.